Welcome to IFRS 16 multiple choice MCQ questions for examinations and accounting interviews. Question number 1. What is the main objective of IFRS 16? Option A, to eliminate all lease disclosures. B, to require lessees to recognize lease assets and liabilities for most leases. C, to account for only finance leases. Option D, to account for only operating leases. Do you have the correct answer? Write it in the comment section. Gone. The correct answer is option B. That is to require lessees to recognize lease assets and liabilities for most leases. Remember, we said in the past that lessees could classify their leases as operating or as finance leases. And because of that, we had an off-balance sheet loophole which allowed lessees to keep most of their liabilities off the balance sheet. So the correct answer is to require lessees to recognize lease assets and liabilities for most leases. We say for most, not all, because there are exemptions. Question number 2. Under IFRS 16, a lessee generally recognizes option A, rent expense only. B, lease liability only. C, right of use asset and lease liability. D, asset only. What is the correct answer? If you know it, I want you to write it in the comment section. Going, and gone. The correct answer is option C. Under IFRS 16, a lessee generally recognizes right of use asset and lease liability. I hope you remember that. If you've not watched our video on IFRS 16, I encourage you to go back and watch it and come back to take this exam. Let's go to question number 3. Which standard did IFRS 16 replace? Easy peasy. Option A says IAS 36. B says IAS 17. C says IAS 38. And D, IAS 40. Do you know your IFRSs? Do you know your IFRS standards? What is the correct answer? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? Write it in the comment section. Correct answer is option B. IFRS 16 replaced IAS 17. That's easy, right? Let's go to question number 4. Which of the following leases may qualify for exemption from recognition by a lessee? A, 20-year property lease. B, lease with purchase option. C, short-term lease of 12 months or less. D, lease of an aircraft for 15 years. What is the correct answer? You say, which of the following leases may qualify for exemption? So which one is the correct answer? Correct answer is C, short-term lease of 12 months or less. You know, there are 2 conditions for exemption. So the second one, I'm not going to tell you. Just go back, watch that video, and come back to answer this question. But for this, the correct answer is option C. Question number 5. A lease liability is initially measured at A, historical costs. B, fair value. C, present value of lease payments. D, carrying amount of the asset. What is the correct answer? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? Yes, if you've not watched the video on IFRS 16, I encourage you to go back, watch it, and come back to answer this MCQ. The correct answer is option C. That is present value of lease payments. We say the present value is you discount the future payments to present value. Yes, you do that because of the time value of money using the rate, the appropriate rate. So we're going to get a question on the rate also, so I'm not going to say much about that. Let's go to question number 6. Which discount rate should be used for when used first when measuring a lease liability? Which discount rate do you use to discount a present value? There are 2 discount rates. One comes before the other. It's when you don't get the first that you can use the second. So what is the first discount rate to be used? A says prime rate. B, inflation rate. C, interest rate implicit in the lease. D, treasury bill rate. What is the correct answer? Is it A, B, C, or D? Write it down. No cheating. Correct answer is C. And C is the interest rate implicit in the lease. That is the correct answer. So the rate that is stated, that is implicit in the lease, that's the one you should prioritize. When you don't get that rate, then you use the second rate. And I won't tell you what that second rate is until we're done with this MCQ. Question number 7. If the interest rate implicit in the lease cannot be readily determined, the lease to use should be A, cost of equity, B, incremental borrowing rate, C, inflation rate, D, market growth rate. What is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? No cheating. Write it down. Going, and gone. The correct answer is B. That is the incremental borrowing rate. So the standard says that the first rate to use, if you want to discount the future lease payment to present value, is to use the rate that is implicit in the lease contract. If you cannot find it, then you use the second option, which is the incremental borrowing rate of the company. That is the correct answer. All right, let's go to question number 8. Which expense pattern typically arises under IFRS 16 for a lessee? You know, a lessee is the person or the company that leases the asset. The lessor is the legal owner of the asset who gives it out. So I hope you know the difference between the lessee and the lessor. If you've not watched our video on IFRS 16, International Financial Reporting Standard 16 on leases, I encourage you to go and watch it and then come back. It's there. Just go to the Finance Simplifier on YouTube, and of course, you can watch it for free. So, what is the correct answer? So, which expense pattern typically arises under IFRS 16 for a lessee? A, only rent expense. B, depreciation and interest expense. C, cost of sales only. And D, impairment expense only. The correct answer is option B. Of course, you know that in the old standard, that is IAS 17, rent was prominent. Now with IFRS 16, rent has given way to be replaced by depreciation and interest expense, otherwise called the finance cost. So that is the correct answer. Correct answer is B, depreciation and interest expense. Question number 9. Which of the following is included in the initial cost of a right of use asset? You know what a right of use asset is, don't you? Option A says initial direct cost, B, future maintenance cost, C, general administrative cost, and D, employee salaries. So which of the following is included? What do you include in the initial cost of a right of use asset? The correct answer is option A. That is initial direct cost. Cost that can be traced directly to that lease contract, to that asset. You know, at the initial stage, you add it to the cost of that asset. Yes, it becomes part of the lease, the right of use asset. Okay, let's go to question number 10. Which lease payments are generally included in measuring the lease liability? Yes. So is it A, fixed lease payment? Is it B, employee bonuses? C, marketing expenses? D, insurance claims? What is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Write it down. No cheating. Write it in the comment section. Going, and gone. Correct answer is A. That is fixed lease payment. Yes, the fixed lease payment, of course, which is paid annually. Okay, or depending on the lease arrangement. So that is the fixed lease payment. So your correct answer there is A. Now let's go to number 11. Under IFRS 16, lessors continue to classify leases as A, current and non-current leases, B, domestic and foreign leases, C, finance and operating leases, D, short-term and long-term leases. Yes, everything we've been talking about is about lessees. What about the lessors? How do they continue to categorize their leases? That is what this question is saying. How do they classify? Is it A, B, C, or D? What is the correct answer? Write it in the comment section. Going, going, and gone. Correct answer is C. They continue to categorize their leases as finance leases and operating leases. But for the lessees, that has been overruled. They are no longer allowed. Because of what? Because of off-balance sheet loophole. Yes, because lessees were hiding their liabilities from the balance sheet and categorizing most of them as operating leases. So only lessors are now permitted to classify their leases as finance leases and operating leases. But for the lessees, it is no longer allowed under IFRS 16. Let's go to question number 12. Which statement is true regarding low value asset exemptions? A, they are mandatory. B, they apply only to lessors. C, lessees may elect not to recognize the lease asset and liability. And D, they apply only to property leases. What is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Write it in the comment section. Going, and gone. Yes, the correct answer is C. Lessees may elect not to recognize the lease asset and liability. What does this mean? It means that this is an exception under IFRS 16. So a lessee is exempted from classifying a lease that is of low value. That's a low value asset, like a printer in the office, for instance. That was the example I used. Like a printer, like a giant stapler, anything that is a low value asset. And the standard gives a guide of $5,000 and below. So that is a low value asset. So if it's a low value asset, it means it is exempted from IFRS 16. And if it is exempted from IFRS 16, it means the lessee may elect not to classify the lease, not to recognize lease assets and liability. That's the correct answer. Number 13, what happens to the lease liability after initial recognition? After initial recognition, what happens? A, it remains unchanged. B, it is measured at fair value annually. C, interest is added and payments reduce the balance. D, it is written off immediately. Correct answer? You got it? No cheating. A, B, C, or D. If you've not watched our video on IFRS 16, go and watch it. And of course, we want to use this opportunity to encourage you to like, to share, and to subscribe to Finance Simplifier if you're enjoying this video. Yes, what's the correct answer? Correct answer is C. Yes, interest is added and payments reduce the balance. This is the correct answer. Question number 14. Which financial statement is most affected by IFRS 16? Which statement? You have the statement of financial position, you have the income statement, you have the statement of cash flows, you have the statement of changes in equity, and of course you have the notes. So which one is most affected by IFRS 16? Correct answer? Is it statement of financial position? A. B, statement of changes in equity. C, statement of cash flows only. D, notes only. Which is the correct answer? Correct answer is A. That is the statement of financial position, also called the balance sheet. Why is it most affected? It is most affected because the right of use increases. Right of use assets increase, and also the liabilities. That is the lease liabilities also increase. So you have the liabilities increasing in the balance sheet, and you also have assets increasing in the balance sheet. And of course, you know that assets and liabilities are treated in the balance sheet. That is a statement of financial position. So the correct answer is A, statement of financial position. Let's take the last question. Question 15. What is a right of use asset? Is it A, an asset representing ownership of the leased item? Is it B, an asset representing the right to use the leased item during the lease term? Is it C, inventory purchased on credit? Or is it D, a receivable from the lessor? What is the correct answer? Correct answer is going, and gone. Correct answer is B. an asset representing the right to use the leased item during the lease term. So that right that the lessee has to use that asset, to have control. I say control is the ability or the right to direct that asset in the way it should be used and to get variable returns from the use of that asset. That is what we mean by control. So it is not about ownership, it is about control. So that is the correct answer. All right, look at these interview questions. What is the difference between a lease liability and a right of use asset? Yes. 2, name the 2 recognition exemptions under IFRS 16. 3, how is a lease liability initially measured? 4, what discount rate is used under IFRS 16? There are 2, one comes before the other one. 5, why did IFRS 16 replace IAS 17? You should know this. If you've not watched my video on it, I urge you to go and do so. 6, how does IFRS 16 affect EBITDA? You know, EBITDA, that is the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. 7, what journal entry is passed at lease commencement? 8, how are lease modifications accounted for? 9, what is the impact of IFRS 16 on gearing ratio? I told you the impact it has on gearing ratio. What is it? What is the impact? Lastly, how does lessor accounting differ from lessee accounting? The lessor, I said, is the legal owner of the asset. Lessee is a person that leases the asset to use it. So, how does accounting for lessor differ from accounting for lessee? My name is Sechala Okori. I'm your finance simplifier. I want to urge you to like, to share with someone, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.